Good morning, pilot teachers and students. Good morning, class.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we'll be only going through revision on, not revision on all the topics that you studied in chemistry. There'll be only a few topics that we'll be going through, and then quickly revisit or make a revision of that, and then we'll go straight into the major topics that we will study in radioactivity. So basically, just to bring back your knowledge that you have in chemistry, especially on ions. Okay, looking at ions, what ions? Can somebody give me an explanation or definition of an ion? Veronica.
An ion is an electrically charged particle.
Okay, very good. So an ion is simply an electrically charged particle, or simply we can say that it is a charged particles. Now, also in chemistry, you may have learned of the isotopes. What are isotopes? Garrett.
Isotopes are atoms of the same element with the same number of protons but different number of neutrons.
Okay, good. So isotopes are elements which are same but having the same different atomic mass and the same proton number. Okay, so you all know that the proton number or the atomic number is an identifying quantity of an element. It tells you what element it is. Okay, so simply an isotope. Now, there are elements which appear or happens in nature that have isotopes, but others don't have isotopes. For example, you need a mass spectrometer to find out which isotope has the abundance. For example, you find that carbon has plenty of isotopes starting from 12, 13, and 14. But then you find that the abundance will be mostly in carbon 12. Okay, so that is why we normally use carbon 12, having the mass number of 12, but it is not 14 and 13 and 14. So in this lesson, we're basically going through ions. Okay, as from the definition, ion is an electrically charged particle. So you can go through the pilot students as well. You can copy this definition down. There will be other information in relation to ion, and then after that I will give you an activity based on ions. Okay, good. That is basically the definition of an ion. Okay, moving on to the okay, it is basically used to describe an atom or even a molecule which loses or gains electron. Okay. Okay, before you go in copying that information, I'll quickly explain to you what you remember, especially in chemistry. Right, there is an atom, and then you have the nucleus in here. The shells of the nucleus will have, all right, the maximum in the first shell will be 2. All right, you will have 2. The next will be 8, so on. So that is especially in the first shell. When it is full, it goes on to the next. So you know the chemical reaction that happens, it is because of the electrons, okay? Whether one element is able to lose or gain electrons. So in this case, when it loses an electron, it becomes a positive ion. And then when it gains an electron, it becomes a negative ion. So that is especially in relation to atomic structure and also losing and gaining of electrons. So quickly go through and then have this, and I'll give you 1 or 2 activities to do. Okay, here is your activity. Pilot students, you can also copy these activities, and maybe your teacher will give you some time to complete that activity. Okay, quickly have that in a table. You'll find that the element, okay, number of protons, and then you have the number of electrons. Okay, that is the number of protons, electrons, total charge will be there under this column, and then you have the ion. Right, for hydrogen, you know the mass number of hydrogen is 1. The proton number is 1. So it must lose that quite easily. So in that case, it loses that 1 electron, and then it becomes a positive ion. So for the rest of these elements, just fill in the numbers that you think will appear in that columns. Okay, the first one has been done for you, that is hydrogen. You can do the same to magnesium. Right, magnesium, it has 12, so the outer cell will have the outer cell will have 2. So it easily loses these 2 in order to become stable. So when it loses, you know that a positive charge or positive ion is formed. Okay, we have your periodic table with you. You can simply take that out, and then using the periodic table you can. All right, to the next part of the activity. Okay, and then you have chlorine and calcium. For chlorine, only the number of electrons is given. You were not given the total charge as well as the proton and the ion. And for calcium, you are given only the ion. The rest of the columns, you can fill it in. In our last lesson, we also studied or looked at charges. Right, the value is about 1.602 times 10 to the minus 19 coulombs. Let's say if it loses, it will become a positive ion. If it loses 2, because it is positive 1.602 times 2, and then that gives you the total charge. If it gains an electron, or let's say 2 electrons, let's say for example if it is oxygen which gains 2, then it is 1 or minus 1.6 times 10 to the minus 19 coulombs times, okay, times 2, because it is gaining 2. Since when it gains, it becomes a negative ion or charge. So quickly go through each one of these. I'll give you the last. Okay, you have bromine, only the total charge is given, and potassium, which is the proton. Okay, only the proton number is given. Chlorine. 17. Was it 18 or 17? 18. Okay, it should be 17. All right, the final 2 questions. Okay, question number 2 is, what is a charge on an ion formed by the loss of 2 electrons by a neutral atom? That is question number 2. And third question is, what is the charge of an ion formed when a neutron atom gains an electron? Okay, the first one is 2 electrons. And third one would be the 1. Okay, using what I did explain here, you can calculate for that question number 2 and 3. Chlorine should be 17. Is that okay? 1, 2, 3. Number 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You give me the answer for number 2. That is magnesium, the protons, neutrons, and or the charge and ion. Okay, whatever is given there. So you decide which one the answer you will give for magnesium, and then after magnesium we have chlorine. Okay, chlorine. The fourth one will be bromine. Okay, bromine will be you. There. Bromine. 3 of you decide. Yeah, bromine. And 3 of you for potassium. Okay. Right, for that question you can, for question number 2 and 3, you find that when an atom will have to lose an electron, okay, it loses 2 electrons to become stable. So in this case, it loses and it becomes a positive. So you have an electron which is having a charge of 1.602 times 10 to the minus 19. But and then you find that it loses 2, so you multiply that with 2. Okay, you give me the answer to these two questions. Which one? Okay, it's quite simple. You know that the charge on an electron is about minus 1.2. So if it loses, then it becomes a positive ion. So you use that positive. That means you will use that positive. Okay, positive 1.602 times 10 to the minus 19 times 2 to give you the total charge. But if it gains, it becomes a negative ion. loses two positive ion. So 1.6 electron has a charge of about 1.602. And then you find that if it loses, then it becomes a positive ion. So you have 1.602 times 2, and then you come up with you have 2, okay, plus 3.0 minus 3, and then you have a positive sign there. But electron is always negative, yeah. But it just indicate plus. You can see the positive ion. Okay, you just put plus over there, and then 302 times 10 to the minus 19.
The one with chlorine is supposed to be
17, yeah. Question 2 and 3. Yeah. Yes, when it's, you know that charge on an electron is negative, but just indicate the sign on the side, whether it is positive or negative. Okay. If it loses, then you simply say it is positive. All right, so we have the answers to. All right, so we'll just start with those people who are chosen to give us the answers. Maybe you can sit where you are if you want to stand up and give us the answer. So please, pilot students, you can also watch carefully as the model students will give you the answers to protons, electrons, or the ions. All right, the first element given is simply magnesium. Okay, for magnesium,
The number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. Given that the magnesium's number of protons is 12, the electrons would be 12.
okay, for magnesium, Marvin has given us the answer as 12 for the number of protons. Electrons would be also 12, and the total charge would be?
The magnesium has to lose 2 electrons, therefore the total charge will be positive 2.
Okay, it uses or loses 2 electrons, and the total charge would be positive 2.
The total charge is positive 2, therefore the ion will be Mg2 plus.
Okay, the ion will be Mg2 plus. Okay, we'll just roll a merge into so. Okay, that is element. Proton, and then you have the electrons. Okay, total. And ion. All right, for Mg for magnesium, 12 plus 2 Mg2 plus. Okay, good. That is correct. The second.
There was a mistake on the number of electrons. Number of electrons is supposed to be 17. Okay, number of protons, because in every atom the number of protons and electrons are the same, the number of protons will have to be 17.
Okay. Um, looking at this, probably we just go through and then make a correction for this one. All right. This number of electrons should be 10. Okay, for chlorine, there is no mistake with that one. Okay, you have chlorine, this one will be 17 and then 18. So the total charge on this one will be
-1.
minus 1. And what is the ion?
The ion is Cl minus.
Okay, you have Cl minus, that is the ion. Okay, we have something like this. That is correct. Okay, looking at the next, that is the calcium.
Calcium, number of protons, 20.
Number of protons will be 20.
Number of electrons, 18.
Number of electrons will be okay, and the total charge will be
2 plus. Plus 2.
okay, plus 2. Okay, what do you think will be the ion?
Ca2 plus.
Okay, you have Ca2 plus. Okay, that is correct. And finally, we just go on to the last two, bromine and potassium. Okay, what is the number of protons?
The number of protons, 35.
35.
The number of electrons, 36.
Okay, 36.
-1. Charge.
Okay, you have -1. Good. And the last one,
Ca 1 minus. Ca Br 1 minus.
okay, you have Br. Okay, Br minus is the ion. Okay, the last, we'll have the last for those. Charlton,
Number of electrons is equals to 20.
number of electrons is
20.
20.
Sorry, 18.
Okay, what is
Plus
it?
Charge +1.
This one will be
18, 18.
18. (18 or 19? Okay, that is 19, and then you have 18
18. Positive charge.
plus 1,
1.
and then you have
Positive. Plus
K plus. Okay, that is the ion. Okay, we'll go for pilot students. Please check this with your answers, and then place a mark if you got that correct. Okay, we'll move on to these two questions. You want to write that? You just explain. Okay. Pastor.
The question asks us to find the charge of an ion formed by the loss of 2 electrons by a neutral atom. We know that an electron has the charge of a negative 1.602 times 10 to the power of negative 19. Therefore, 1.602 to the power of negative 19 times 2, which is the 2 electrons that has been lost, and you get 3.204. Because it's a loss of electrons, it's a plus 3.204 to the power of negative 19.
Okay, good. Well explained. Okay, looking at this, you find that especially the electron has minus 1.602 times 10 to the minus 19 coulombs. But and then because it loses, it will become a positive ion. This time it loses 2, so we can simply say that 1.602 times 10 to the minus 19 times 2, okay, gives you 3.204 times 10 to the minus 19. Okay, because it is 2, okay, you have a plus. And then the last one would be Kimberly. Okay, who is willing to give us the answer to that? Okay, anyway, the last question will be also the same, using the same method that you used to calculate, simply because it gains one of these electrons, right? Electron, as we've seen, it is about 1.602 times 10 to the minus 19. Okay, but because it gains only 1, okay, 1 times, and then since it gains, it becomes a negative ion. So it will be 1.602 times 10, 19. Okay, that is from explanation. But if you still want to check with your answers, right? Okay, that is, those are your answers to the questions. And then you have, okay, quickly go through and check. Okay, it is the same thing as what is given there. And then we go to the last, which is this. All right, for the last two. All right, so we have come to the end of our lesson on ions. Okay, some of this information will be able to help you to study the other topics. So with that, in our next lesson, we will basically go through and then study radioactivity, especially on types of decay, looking at the types of decay. Especially there are 3 types. One is alpha decay, beta decay, and gamma decay. So all of these you can go through, especially in your own time, and then have a look at that, study that, and I hope to see you in our next lesson. So our keyword for today would be, our keyword would be ions. Okay, good afternoon, pilot teachers and students. Good afternoon, class. Thank you. You may sit down.